All right, a group of bipartisan senators finally finished writing the infrastructure bill over the weekend and unveiled it last night. The bill includes funding for things like roads, bridges, transit, water, and broadband. It includes $66 billion for railways in the largest spending increase since the creation of Amtrak, $65 billion to expand broadband internet access, $55 billion on clean water to replace every lead pipe in our country, $7.5 billion for a network of electric vehicle charging stations. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is hoping to get it passed before the senators leave on August recess. But it would take days to read the 2,702-page bill. Joining us now, Oklahoma Senator James Lankford. Senator James Lankford, great to see you, sir.
It's great to see you as well, Sean.
Thank you. Senator, I admittedly did not take math in college, but I scratched this out a little. At 2 minutes per page, it would take the average person about 90 hours to read the entire 2,700-page bill. That's 3.5 days of continuous reading with no stopping for sleep or any kind of breaks. Should every member of Congress be required to read this before voting?
I think we should actually, and once you started reading it, I'm sure it's such a page turner that you couldn't sleep once you go through it. To give you a perspective, 2,700 pages, that is longer than the Iliad, the Odyssey, and War and Peace combined. So if you took all three of those, it's longer than all of it. So this is 2,700 pages of infrastructure poetry that's been laid out there. The challenge that we have on it is, obviously, we need to do infrastructure. That's a given. We do infrastructure. But this is not just an infrastructure bill. This is the Biden team saying they want to do something historic, something that's never been done, to spend more on infrastructure that's ever been done. So it takes the normal infrastructure bill that we would do, which is about $400 billion, which is big, and then it tacks onto it all of these giant things that have no pay-fors on them at all. So it's part of it's paid for, that the typical infrastructure portion of it, and part of it's unpaid for. That's the above and beyond. We want to do something historic portion of it. Our push has been, hey, let's do the part that we can actually afford. Let's keep doing infrastructure like we always do. Every single highway that's out there is a previous infrastructure project. It's not like we've never done infrastructure before, but this is a giant debt bomb that's sitting out there on it, and is the first step of a two-step process of actually heading into what Biden had asked for, to do a $4 trillion proposal, part of it entitlements, part of it infrastructure. This is the first down payment of it.
Right.
Wow. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, he wants the vote to happen this week, for you guys to read those whole 2,700 pages this week. But you have Mitch McConnell saying there should be no artificial timeline here. So, Senator, how long is this process actually going to take?
It'll take as long as it takes, obviously. It is the Senate, so we'll lay amendments out. I've got multiple amendments that I've laid out. For instance, one of the amendments that I have has to deal with immigration issues, to say that we shouldn't have a contractor or a subcontractor that doesn't use E-Verify, that can't verify the people working on these infrastructure projects aren't American citizens. That should be a pretty easy piece, I would hope, in this process, that Biden's been very focused on getting more American jobs here. A lot of the infrastructure focus is on American jobs. Well, let's make sure American citizens are actually doing that. That's not included into this bill currently. Right now, there is no requirement that American citizens actually have to be the ones actually doing the work. So that's one of the amendments that we have. There'll be lots of other amendments that are out there that both I have and other members have to try to improve on this bill. And then we've also got a budget point of order to say we should only put out there what we can actually pay for.
You know, on the on that immigration one, I would assume you could probably even get labor to support that, because American jobs is something that the labor industry or the labor unions should be on board with. So I think that would be interesting to see where they come down on that. But I want to touch base on something else you just said, because I hear from a lot of folks on the left, they go, this infrastructure bill is an investment in the future. You have been a leading conservative, not just on social issues, but on economic issues. And I feel like we're talking about an investment in the future by spending $1 trillion that, frankly, we don't have. So we're investing in the future, but the future, our children, our grandchildren, are also getting saddled with millions and trillions and $1 billion in debt. So what future do we want for our children and grandchildren?
Yeah, apparently the future they want is a bridge, but no one can afford the gasoline anymore to actually drive across it or to be able to actually function or to be able to travel and get a job. And so we've got to be able to do both. Again, infrastructure has not been a partisan issue, but the key on infrastructure is you build what you can afford, build that, keep going, and keep progressing from there. Not more than you can actually afford. And you've got to be able to deal with permitting reform is one of the big issues we've raised as Republicans over and over again. If you make every single mile of construction more expensive because it takes longer with permits to do it and the regulations are so onerous to be able to do it, now you can't build more miles of roads because you're actually paying people to do paperwork in the process. So some of the reforms we proposed is make it cheaper to actually do construction rather than continue to make it harder and harder and more expensive, and you get less and less product at the end of it. That shouldn't be a radical concept. That's called efficiency that we all should look for, and that's one of the sets of amendments that we'll have in the days ahead to say, let's not make it so expensive. Let's build what we can afford, but let's get as much as possible of what we should be able to afford.
Totally agree with you. Senator James Lankford, as always, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your insights.
You bet. Glad to be able to see you all again. Keep doing a good work.